questions, good questions.
I love a good city builder, guys, and I'm sure you've both felt the anguish of losing your painstakingly constructed city to fires or alien invasion. The PC game Banished, however, is a tough nut to crack because even surviving your first winter is a challenge.
The cast out, or banished, citizens of a remote pre-industrial community are left to fend for themselves and start their own way of life.
You start out with very little. Your banished citizens must immediately start collecting resources and stockpiling them. They'll need to use these items to build enough houses to stave off the cold, create enough farmland for food, and build a storage barn to keep the food from getting spoiled.
Banished is a game about priorities. You need to assign workers to the most important facilities and jobs before the onset of snow, and it will take a few attempts before you figure out what the right balance will be. Starting with a forester's lodge to manage the production of wood is a good idea, followed by a wood chopper to turn some of that into firewood, or your citizens will freeze. But they can also get sick, so you'll need a herbalist to make medicine.
And it's not like SimCity, for example, where you just shell out piles of gold to create each building. You're forever cutting trees and collecting stone for every construction. And individual workers need to be told to do those jobs. And even then, the production of each building or farm needs to be individually managed to ensure everything runs smoothly. And honestly, guys, sometimes that just seemed impossible.
I know. I mean, this is where I started to feel myself getting a little bit overwhelmed. I had farms of chickens and sheep, orchards and crops, but still my people would be starving. Eventually I started to get the hang of it, but it's a slow process.
Yeah, sometimes I had so few people available to do all their various jobs that I just stopped production on everything and had about 5 people fishing for food just so we had enough to get through the winter.
Yeah, I was doing okay until one of my farms developed an infestation. I immediately tried to build a new disease-free farm for them to move into, but I couldn't build it fast enough, so they all died.
But I bet you didn't make that same mistake again.
True. The next time I had a backup farm ready to go, so at least my chickens survived. Oh.
The main way you can expand your town is by building more houses so that new families have room to grow. But that can be a problem too, because all the children are too young to work and they eat all the food.
It's amazing how quickly the tide can turn, isn't it? I ended up calling my town's Living Town, and please just stay alive-ville, in hopes that that would make a difference. In saying that though, Banished is wonderful for the very reason that it bases its difficulty on the simple reality of survival, and I love that.
Once you're doing well enough to build yourself a town hall, nomads will occasionally wander by requesting citizenship. So this can be a good way to boost your population.
Affirmative. Also, setting up a trade route to barter for the items you need is a smart idea. It's always so exciting when that little boat arrives. What do they have for me today? Let's trade!
It's good for those sorts of things you don't have, like a particular type of livestock, but I also found it useful for those types of materials that your citizens are a little slow to collect for themselves. I had a mine and a quarry to try and get more stone and iron to build with, but not enough people to work in them. Sometimes it can feel like an eternity for some things to happen in this game.
Yeah, honestly, I think this is an experience that will really appeal to people who don't want to be guided and really want to figure things out for themselves. There will be a lot of instances where you feel like you're doing everything right and yet everything is going wrong. It'll take a lot of tweaking and fiddling before you're able to figure out why your citizens aren't doing what they're supposed to.
There is an in-game help system, but I found myself consulting online forums and wikis as well. There's already a great community of fans out there with a lot of love for this kind of hardcore challenge.
Yeah, and likewise, there are some easier difficulty settings that will start you off with things like a few sheep or a couple of houses already built just to get you going.
If you want to make things even tougher on yourself, you can choose even harsher weather conditions, or choose a mountainous landscape that makes farming even more difficult.
I'm not sure I'd like to make this game any more difficult than it already is, Darren. What are you giving it, Hex?
Well, it's tough, but in all the right ways. I do wish I could have managed to get things progressing a little bit more quickly, as I started to get a bit bored at times, but I just love a game that bases its mechanics around the harshness of living off the land, so I'm giving it 8.5.
I'm giving it 8 out of 10 rubber chickens.
Yodele.
Yodele.
Yodele, yodele, yodele.
It's a silly
Mine was
type
better.
of singing.